Welcome, perceptive readers, to the Sage's Lifetimes, Part 5 in this limited series. I encourage you very much to go back through Part 1, 2, 3, 4, and now concluding Part 5 because it will bring you up to speed, so to speak, of these concluding thoughts. And I last picked up in the last conclusion, so to speak, of part four, talking about how cool God is, the personality of the sages, what they realizes, and things of that nature, and even about decisions on why people make them. And I continue to relate to you about how persons, no matter how many, even two or three, can come to decisions at times, and especially in the interests of righteousness, holiness, and justice, and things of that nature, and fully feel like, yep, we made the right decision because God's word really does say that two or three speaking in my name, I'm there. You see, Jesus said he's there. We made the right decision. And so I basically was sharing with you that no, some of the persons in hindsight, and for the one who is experiencing this treatment and judgment of that time, very much realize that, hey, yeah, Jesus may have been there, but really your hearing and your eyes were still skewed by certain background factors. And this is what has happened to some persons, and the ones in modesty and humility of the human condition, some have straight up admitted that. I've seen examples of persons who really loved God. See, even loved God, but they didn't even realize until sometime later, with God in his coolness and his patience, was showing them that they were even making decisions at times, important decisions, important decisions at times that was very much skewed by their one view of a skin color over the other as far as their mental and spiritual capacity. See, in other words, what I'm talking about there was a very bigoted view of the situation and even the ones who were around them. There's been persons at times where they didn't view themselves as being even bigots, but guess what? Even their children very much knew that they were. See? So, yet they love their parents. They even appreciated that their parents loved God. But they very much knew that if their parents had had the opportunity to roll back time, so to speak, and even put certain skin colors in bondage in that way, shackles in that way, to be beholding upon them even before God, they certainly wouldn't have no qualms about it. So, do you see how judgment and spirituality can even be affected by that way if you have even more than one together that still have the same type of mentality and that same type of outlook? It does happen, and God knows it. One thing that I will share with you about the matter is something that I've observed, though, is God actually doesn't have to, and he doesn't. And see, and I realize that, remember, people will look at what Jesus did and the way that God had Jesus express himself about his life, about him being living water, about him being the bread of life, and things of that nature. That Persons will try to put themselves in that role. And again, it was a role that only belonged to Jesus, you see. Jesus is the final authority. Now, we could get into something even more on a deeper level as far as what happens to person when they do go to heaven and they become kings and priests with Jesus, but I won't. I'll say that for another time. What I am sharing with you again today is humans, see, not really having the accurate knowledge or at least the clear eye view of what's being shared with them. Remember, I told you how God, He actually shows you something. I'm showing you why I feel about this matter in this way or that way, or what have you. That they still can even receive the accurate knowledge, but it still doesn't mean that they're applying the accurate knowledge in the correct way towards the benefit of this person who is doing good or even doing bad. Mhm. In other words, won't even give them their due when they're doing good. There are excuses given at times where God clearly showed in His Word in a variety of places about people's wages. Um, he talked about not holding back good to someone when it is owing them, you see, and you got the power in your hand to do it. Those type of verses and statements from God, remember, depending on a person's skewed scene of view of their background, they will ignore those verses all day long and feel justified in it, you see, and then even still view themselves as being righteous and in the sense of having no sin, even though they very much do have sin. Let me say this in another way. I told you that in conversations with some of those cool sages over the years, even though you didn't see what they may be battling with in this way or that way, you know what? They would be still the first to tell you, "Oh, no, I'm not perfect." And you know what? One of the reasons why they were so cool and was good in their judgment and the way that they dealt with people is because they realized that very much so. And you know something? See, some persons who they would associate with, you see, knew that they knew, put it this way, the persons that they chose to be around, let me say that, they chose them because they knew as well that once they may have seen their hangups or their imperfections in this way or that way, that person wasn't going to all of a sudden just start losing total respect for them, you see. And so I gave you examples in part 4 of this of what some of those are, you see, those things that affect us in perfect nature. And that's why, I continue to say that even though a person can view themselves as righteous, sometimes there's an expression that said, man, that person think that they're so right in what they're doing that their S don't stink, you see. And so what are we saying? We're saying that that person basically just think, oh, they may say, oh, I'm not perfect, but boy, they show enough. Certainly, you can just tell by their aura and the way that they treat you. They certainly feel that they're more perfect than you. They're more deserving of you in this way or that way, and they treat you as such. And so, in other words, it's almost like they're still showing by their actions towards you that when it comes to sin, they certainly have no sin because you're just that bad in sin. You see, and yet that's why I give you the example that if a person is really still being bigoted on the examples that I gave you before, even in their view in that way or that way, oh yeah, they're very much still showing what Jesus and God has proven, that we are still sinful creatures. Even though they're not falling down the street drunk or what have you, in the way that they're actually carrying out actions and judgments on a daily basis towards these different people or that person or what have you. Picking and choosing and judging, even whether they are just pay them or not for something that they know they're supposed to be getting paid for in this way or that way, withholding back. I used the example in the internet age. Their streams, their website visits, their YouTube videos. See, I can use those. Uh, Other videos, their Spotify streams, and their likes and all that stuff. That's currency, that's wages that's not supposed to be held back. These people have earned it, no matter how they earned it. Whether they use their vast singing talents, their producing skills, to persons using their intellectual property, their thoughts, just writing, putting letters out on the internet, you know, that posting, then that visit that comes from somebody else, you see, shouldn't be taken from them and then actually redirected to somebody else. There's no justification for it. You can't even say that you're doing this for security. That's a side note, a side conversation or thought in itself. Because see, I realize why certain demographics, topology, or locations in the world why persons do it. I do realize that, but remember, I'm talking still in everyday people in general. And sometimes I told you when people have this not accurate or skewed view of matters, then I'd already, shared with you in the other four podcasts of this series how humans would practically just justify anything, to withhold back some good from persons at times. And it's not as complicated as they make it. And then the stuff that is complicated, they want to treat as is frivolous. And again, it's just still putting things out in the street about this situation or that person that really shouldn't have been. All the same, God, you see, doesn't have to turn you into a vampire of people's wages, soul, spirit, or what have you, in order for you to establish your righteousness. Jesus is the bread of life. He is the water, you see. Uh, that even said that we drink from his water. And what does it become? It goes inside of us, it bubbles forth out of our heart to still share, you see, good things with others. But I guarantee you, I'm telling you again, it's not on the type of level that his arch enemy has turned it to. And that's why I continue to tell you about having clear understanding or accurate knowledge on matters. I want to reemphasize that humans will place heavy loads and burdens of judgments upon you at times that God wouldn't bit more do to you. Jesus made that clear. See, when he was even making those expressions as he was condemning, you see, some of the religious leaders of their day. See, how were they actually placing heavy loads upon the people? See, this was stuff on the spiritual level as well as financial. Okay, both keeping the people guilty and feeling downtrodden and unworthy and things of that nature, keeping them in that frame of mind and state. Why? To then even accomplish the other thing of fleecing them on a level that they had no business fleecing them. You see? But that's what I still want to emphasize with you today. The sages, some of them I've known, you know, may have had an upbringing of even in the church that then by the time that I've ran into them, they certainly were no longer regular churchgoers. But you know what? They still deserve to be treated with dignity. I tell you that much. You know, and even in some of these persons' higher positions, who visited some of these sages at times or what have you, not only did they give them dignity, but guess what? They even gave them respect. And yes, there is a difference between respect and dignity. Uh, as you see in some of those statements that people have highlighted and shown on their website. Oh, I even got a picture. I even got a picture that Poeartistry created that showed one of the ones, the statements about respect is earned, not given. So that's the view of respect. And yet the difference with dignity is really individuals have dignity, a proper protocol with the way that they should be addressed and treated in certain matters, which we talked about there, about especially when it deals with judgment and people's headship arrangements and things of that nature. You know, that I told you, according to God's righteous standard and divine laws and things of that nature, we just don't willy nilly, so to speak, you see, just be pulling rank on people in that way and in frivolous ways. And we certainly don't be doing it behind their back. Why? Because, see, in God's view, no matter what humans, and I see humans still talk about this. Humans will sometimes come to this conclusion, well, and not deserving of my time or attention or whatever you. And you know what? That is certainly the case. You see, in situations, especially when somebody is really just trying to be your enemy and get under your skin just to steal and rob from you. Yet at the same time, there is still even a limit of what we can do to deal with that at times. Sometimes we can only run away from the situation because that's even scriptural too, because that's no other choice we've been given. If you're sitting up there being a hen thrown into a wolf's den, so to speak, then that hen is going to do its best to try to fly away from it. Why? Because it is nothing is going to be served in that type of condition or environment. You know, I saw one time a hen thrown. It's on YouTube, but was somehow walked into the lair of alligators, and it was almost like it was able to run away from maybe one or two of them, but I tell you what, by the fourth or fifth, it was already caught. You see, so the whole point is, you know, these are factors. It's just a few. That remember I said God is very cool. You see, people call persons God is patient, but he's cool too. And I've mentioned some of the persons who had that still deep respect for God. You see, over the years, whether they had actually learned it from reading a good book on their own, went to God's house, the sanctuary, or not, there was a certain, a certain view in their heart still. They were doing the best that they could. No spinning, no this, no that. There were certain things that they just weren't going to tolerate either, with a certain way of treating people. Remember, even the jerks could still get a righteous judgment from these certain persons who wouldn't have even called their judgments righteous. They probably would just say it's practical in this way, to do it in this way or that way. And so the whole point is I've given you examples about wages, about goodness, um, about how humans, you see, will put more on you than what God won't even put on you or what have you because of their own background and agendas and things of that nature. God will show persons that. Some of the most righteous judges understand that as well. And they try their best to give judgment in that way. Thank you for enjoying this month of June with me, Perceptive Readers, in this Sage Limited, the Sage's Lifetimes Limited series. And now, as I mentioned, all of these will be hyperlinked together. I told you I think I got more than a dozen or so. They'll all be hyperlinked together and shared. And some of them you'll see the memo notes and things of that nature. I want you to know that this podcast, when transcribed and shared with Poeartistry, she actually does clear up. You see some of the choppiness in these podcasts, the choppiness, okay? you know, and so some of the expressions that I use here, you may not see them in the memo notes or what have you. So that's why I encourage you as well, and I put it in the top of the memo notes that you also listen to this podcast when you have a time, when you have the time, other than even just reading it, you see, but actually listening to what we're talking about here. Sections 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And so, one person may just pick up in a coffee shop with you and just say, "Hey, did you hear that podcast or what have you?" Blah, blah, blah. And you may want to ask them, which one did you listen to in the series? And if they just said, "Oh, I just heard only number 5," then you may want to say to them, "I think you should go back through 1, 2, 3, and 4 even before you get to 5. Then, if you ever listen to it again, because they are all meant to be as one, really, in the sense. I just broke it down in different sections. All right. Take care of yourself, perceptive readers.